Hey, welcome to another episode of H2O. What's going on, Mario?
What's going on? What's going on, my man? Always good to be here. It's kind of like our Wednesday ritual. I quite like it. Because it's hard for logistics guys to step away from the busyness of trucking and containers and all that stuff, and actually put my phone on D&D, which I never do, to do the show with you. So I'm excited always to be here.
It's fun, especially with these new lives that we do every Wednesday. All right, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what some people are really talking about right now, which is a big concern, is a possible strike in the Port of Los Angeles, Long Beach. We're talking the ILA. So
Right.
now, a couple of facts. There's about 22,000 employees that work along the East Coast or the West Coast ports. And 3/4 of them actually work in Long Beach and Los Angeles. Now, the last contracts that they were all talking about 4 years ago, they were talking about the most important thing to them was insurance. That was very, very important to them. But things are changing. Now it's about the money. What do you hear about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, inflation. Everybody is seeing that everywhere, and I mean, one thing with the unions is, which actually I understand where they're coming from, right? Because they negotiated the last contract 4 or 5 years ago, right? And obviously, it not never really encounters for inflation that we see today. So I actually understand why they're talking about money, and why that's a crucial point.
Well, some of the shoremen as well are saying that, I mean, actually, the dock workers are saying that the shoremen is actually making the situation worse. But people have to understand without the shoremen, that port's not going to, nothing's going to happen at those ports. Now,
No,
there's,
exactly, and I got to be honest, Mitch. Many times I'm actually, yeah, I don't want to see a strike, right? But you got to see that the longshoremen, I mean, they're moving the containers off the dock. It's actually pretty dangerous job moving those big containers that weigh 20, 25 tons, like 55,000 pounds, right? I mean, it's a dangerous job. And I got to say that most people thinking, oh, they're making 400 grand a year, da 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 da, right? That's only really a small percentage of people, right? The
right.
regular standard dock worker is making, they're making good money. I'm not saying they're not, right? But they're not making this crazy money that you're always hearing in the news.
No, I mean, some of them do make very good money. I mean, they're well over $100,000, and it's all based on certain chains of command. I get it. It's a very good old boy, old school type of mentality.
Right.
But what they're also saying is that, hey, listen, we've been working through COVID. We were the ones here still moving containers during the time of one of the greatest pandemics that happened here in
Yeah.
the United States. So why can they not be now compensated? Because listen, they're listening and they see that these steamship lines are making billions of dollars in profit. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, one of the biggest challenges, Mario, too, especially in your neck of the woods on the West Coast, a lot of those terminals are actually owned by foreign carriers.
Correct. Well, and I think it's only fair uh, when there's a lot more money to be made. Should a longshoreman make more money? And I tend to argue, my argument would be no. Yes, it needs to be an adjustment for inflation, etc. Right? That part I understand.
Sure.
But right now, I think we are in an unprecedented time on how much money ocean carriers are making. But also, I think it would be pretty bad to use that as like the basis to renegotiate a contract in the future, because you and I both know that these profit from these carriers are not going to stay where they are long term. Yes, right now they're going to be there. Maybe they're going to be even there for the next 2 or 3 years. But are they going to be there for the next 5 years? I mean, everybody's got to remember we're coming out of decades of carriers are not making any money or very little.
Sure. I love you to death, but I will have to disagree on that comment about decades of not making, because Maersk, they're public. They're all public. You could read it. They haven't really lost much ever. They've either broken even or have made a couple million. Now, some other ones like Evergreen, who have their hiring skills are completely moronic, as obviously you've seen two of their captains already got two vessels lodged in canals, which I don't understand. The vessel's only going like 4 to 5 knots. But that's
Right.
besides the point. I'm not just going to ramble on. But now let's talk. Let's talk about something also that's really important is if the ILA pushes back, Mario, the carriers can say, screw you. We're going to route our cargo to the East Coast ports. Savannah being an example of one of them,
Yeah.
maybe Charleston. I think that would be the dumbest thing. Have you ever seen the Port of Savannah? I've been to the Port of Savannah. Heck, I
Yeah.
do business out of the Port of Savannah. That is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I mean, they're having problems with equipment as it is. They're not going to be able to handle this volume, even if they spread it out. Most of the stuff that comes into the LA ports, I believe a lot of it is perishables, right? Or am I
Yeah.
wrong?
Well, and you got to realize that going to the East Coast doubles the transit time, right? And a lot of, I mean, the supply chain is under so much pressure already. Like doubling the way the product is getting here to the United States, I guarantee you most customers are not going to go for it. And I had talks over the last 10 years about
Power off.
options to talk about in terms of Ensenada or maybe Pertonini, right? Other different ports. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work. The infrastructure is not there, and you don't have the high volume ports like the LA. And like you rightfully said, so during the pandemic, yes, we had containers backed up, right? And ships backed up, but the container operation was still flowing.
That's right. That's right. And they're using that as leverage. I mean, they're understanding that these lines are making a ton of money. Let's see if they help pitch in a little bit. What are they going to do? Now, there's only 3 outcomes to this, right? There really is only 3 outcomes, Mario.
Yeah.
Outcome number 1, they actually agree before the terms get expired and everything goes status quo.
Which, by the way, I think has never happened in the history.
Never.
Right?
Never.
As far as I can remember.
Never. Now, number 2 is the most common one, right? Operation tends to slow down a lot. So things are going to go a lot slower. There's going to be causing a lot more supply chain issues. Guys, it's just the way it works. And the third and final only other option, and that's a full-blown strike. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I don't think we're going to go to a full-blown strike because everybody involved know this is just going to piss everyone off, right?
Sure. Sure.
Slowing down, I don't think needs to happen this time, right? Normally, the unions are doing that to leverage, right? I think they have all the leverage in the world right now, right? Because supply chain is in the media every week, every month, every year, because it's a huge driver in inflation.
Of course.
Right? Which makes you think, right? If an increase in union salaries, will further fuel that, right? Because at the end of the day, I could see the carrier saying, hey guys, it's so much more expensive to go to LA right now. We need, I don't know, $200 more a container every time you go through that port.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I think option 2 is going to occur. I think things will slow down. I do not think they're going to agree on anything in the next 2 months prior to it going into effect. I do feel that the steamship lines are going to have to step in and probably help subsidize some of these things if they want the operation to run smoothly. One thing that I kept mentioning and harping on, and I've posted on LinkedIn hundreds of times, is every time like CMA buying parts of the terminal over at Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach. It's crazy. These steamship lines are now starting to really get entangled within the U.S. Business of logistics, and it's causing some big problems. So I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly don't think that they're going to reroute those vessels. I'm going to have to agree with you too, Mark.
I don't think. I think there's no way, and we'll see what's going to happen. But I think nobody involved in the industry right now would be open or even want to start thinking about what might happen. It scares me, but I hope that everybody on both sides of the table, so to speak, realizing what's at stake here, because at the end of the day, it just doesn't make the Port of LA competitive, right? Right now it's the biggest and it's the most convenient in terms of location. But I can tell you that if we constantly run into this issue at some point, and I've seen this where people do route product maybe through Mexico or other port,
Yeah, just making logistics a little bit more complicated. But at the end of the day, there's still costs involved in any types of changes you do in logistics. So guys, so be prepared. A couple things you can do now is just make sure you look into the FMC and what they're doing with respect to a lot of the changing in regulations. Also, calling out carriers, figuring out how they're getting their price rate, how they're getting their rates. Also, you can look in, I use Load, what is it called? Lodestar. That's a great one. So be informed of what's going on. But to bring this to a close, now, something that's been on both of our minds that we've been discussing is hedging. I love hedging. Anything when it comes to hedging, I like, but I've never had the thought of actually hedging freight.
Yeah.
Enlighten me on that one.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to talk a little bit about this, and this is fairly new, right? And we had a couple of conference calls with the companies who are currently setting it up. In 2008, they already tried to do this, and unfortunately, it failed. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen this time and what's going to be different this time, But there's a few steps on the project here that I see that's really different, which I think might help. And it gives you a really good indication. So it's almost like a future trades of ocean freight, where you can basically lock in freights in the future, which I'm really excited to talk about next week. And when people want to know more about this, I'm pretty sure I can get a couple guys joining our show next time, whenever we want to do that, to really do deep dive. But we're going to talk about it next week in general.
I think that is an incredible topic, hedging freight. So to being able to know what my expenses are going to be a few months down the line, that's unheard of, but it's so exciting to find out what your contacts have to say. So, all right, guys, we'll see you guys next week, same time, 1 p.m. Central Time, 11 West Coast time, and we will see you guys next week. Let's talk more about hedging freight. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you.